All right, folks, welcome to the December 13th Ambient work group meeting. Actually, even before I forgot, we talked about it in the last meeting, in that the Istio work group meeting, we decided this is going to be the last one for the year, and we'll pick it up again on January the 3rd. How do folks feel about this one here? Well, let me ask another way. Will there be folks around for the next 2 weeks?
I will be around.
Yeah, Solo will be. I mean, I will be around, I think.
You can claim Solo will be around.
That's fair. I will. Me and Lynn, I speak for me, myself, and only me.
I'll probably be around.
Will you be around?
I'll be around next week, but probably not the week after.
Okay. So shall we hold this meeting on the 20th and then just pick it back up again, skip one afterwards, and pick it back up again on January the 3rd?
I think we can hold it, just if it doesn't have to approve anything, right?
That's going to be my point. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a decision-making meeting, but there can be iterations on things, questions answered, questions posed. Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so who else would be around? I saw Jeremy said, can you give a thumbs up if you are going to be around?
All right.
All right, that's
Okay. That tells me we should
sounds
hold
like
on
plenty of yeah. Okay,
Lynn,
cool.
despite you making fun of me, a lot of Solo folks did just say yes. So
I know, you're right. You can't represent everybody else other than you.
All right. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the next topic. So actually, Lynn, do you want to brief the folks here?
Yeah, so we just had a work group meeting. I just want to make sure folks here also agree. So we kind of discuss 121 release timeline. Francis, if you want to click on the link and open it up. So basically, the decision from the team was we shouldn't hold up a release train anyhow for Ambient, even though we are trying to see if we can accomplish Ambient beta for maybe a fraction of Ambient as part of this working group. So the new date, I believe on your next table, Francis, on page 3.
I've already updated it.
Oh, you already updated. Perfect.
The wiki, so the 121 wiki is live with these days.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we basically delayed a week because the original date was February 12th. Now the new release date is February 19th as of that discussion. So I want to socialize with people here because we have way more people on this call than the previous call to see if there's any objections or any concerns. All right, sounds like there's no objection, so that's a good FYI for everybody. And then the next topic also for me, Francis, if you can. So just want to update everybody. We've been kind of gone through this document to update, do assessment of where we are with Ambient Mesh to beta and try to hit every single item here, make sure we have owners. I think you can read all of these in red as, a bunch of action item. We're still calling for help for different item, particularly observability. We still need an owner. I'm also trying to spend some time to set up the board. We have some of these items already populated in the board, but the key takeaway is there's plenty of to do in many of these. The Yuval and Ben already submitted the PRs for Istio CNI and zTunnel for the CNI portion. So we change them, both of them as the owner for the CNI. Anything else we should highlight here? I think that's about it. Yeah. So basically, just we need an owner for a lot of items.
So Lynn, just to clarify, everything that's highlighted in red, those need owners for?
Okay, so good question. Yeah, definitely. Anything highlighted in red needs action or follow up. Yep.
Some have owners, but they still need follow-up.
Yeah, some have owner already identified. Some doesn't have owner identified yet.
So it looks like most of the, if not all of the P0s have people's name next to them, just not the P1s.
That's the goal of walking through this exercise. Make sure we can claim ambient beta at some time next year, right? Particularly for layer 4. And also a quick update on this in red here, Francis. I think that was the biggest risk from the meeting we had last week. What happens if the application part starts before Z-tunnel or Istio CNI is ready? We've been having a lot of discussion in GitHub. So one of the solution was taint nodes, which John is not a big fan of. We also come up with another solution, thanks to Yuval. We could potentially do something similar as Sidecar, where we would just do inject a init container, and all it does is making sure Z-tunnel and Istio CNI is running on that pod before the application pod reaches running. So I think that would provide some of guarantee. The only challenge is it would introduce the webhook back to be able to inject the init container, but I think it does solve this particular problem that we highlighted. Was one of the showstopper identify to progress to beta. Any concern or objection with that? I think you assigned that work item to yourself, so I expect you will probably make some progress. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I started looking at the init container, so it shouldn't be too bad. I think in the end we'll probably want both eventually, but I think the init container is a good place to start.
Yeah, definitely. So I personally do feel we have a good handling most of the things in red. Francis, to answer your question. All right. Does anyone have any questions on this document? Feel free to, follow up and, hit me on Slack if you have any questions. I'll just make a comment to the doc. If not, we can probably move to the next topic.
So this is on John and Ben.
Yeah. I think the next topic.
Well, hold on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, never mind. This
we
is
have.
Yeah. Those guys,
yeah.
they were on the agenda way before anybody else, and they need to get their time.
Oh, I'm so apologize. We probably should let you guys go first. Yeah, go ahead.
And can one of you take over the presentation, because I need to drop soon.
Oh, I think it doesn't matter, and I think you can just click the link to get into the proposal.
Oh, yeah, this one, right?
Yeah. So I think please allow me to give some brief introduction about the Inhang from Alibaba AliCloud, and we also have some investigation and practice in ambient mesh. Yeah, and this is one of the features we want to give such a proposal to the communities, especially for the in the ambient mode. We have found some issues as you know, in the real production environment, we install ES2 in different clusters. Control plane in the one in the control plane cluster, another in the data plane cluster. So in this situation, we found that it cannot be work for us in ambient mesh. Maybe I think we can give some show some videos we have copied record. Yeah. So Han, are you ready to give some yeah? So give the video. Yeah.
Okay.
Video. Yeah.
I have a small demonstration.
Yeah, you can take control. Yeah, you can take control of the.
Yeah, go for it. Take control over the presentation.
Okay, thanks. So I'm going to give a small demonstration of what we found on our production environment. As you can see, I have installed primary in 2 classes, following the community's guide. I installed the ES2 control plane on cluster 1, which is the primary cluster, and configured cluster 2 to use the control plane in cluster 1, which is the remote cluster. And in addition, you can see the ES2 CNI and cTernal are also installed in the cluster 2. In this case, I suppose that ambient mesh could also work in this remote cluster, just like the single cluster ambient mesh. However, we can see some error logs from both ES2D and cTernal. Let's take a look. Okay. We could see that ES2D says that impersonation failed. How the ES2 system guns the eternal blah blah not found. And the eternal says that unable to provide third and something. We found that the eternal's impersonate CSR has failed, and it couldn't get any workload cert from ES2D when it is deployed in the root cluster, because currently Pilot doesn't maintain the eternal pods deploying in root clusters, so it cannot actually recognize them. Okay, that's thank you. That's all of the demonstration, and okay.
Yeah,
How
I think
yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I think that we also have some description about these issues in our proposal and in the issue. Yeah, and and you know, we also have raised some proposals and solutions for handling these things, and as we have mentioned in the proposal, we will, yeah, you know, there is a new multi-clusters node authorizer for the tunnels. I think that this cause is very clear, obviously for us to that the tunnel cannot get the correct response from the ES2D. So I think we also raise this proposal, and I think maybe we need to show the proposal. Yeah, share the screen in the proposal. Okay. Yeah. So I'm.
Should I share this?
Yeah. That will be that would be great if you can share the screen. Yeah. Can you share the screen? Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah. I can see your screen about the proposal. Yeah, maybe I think I can share this. Yeah, can you see my screen now?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
okay. So I think for our solutions, we will new node authorizer, and there will contains all the clusters are authorizer. Then it can give some give some map in here. This is you can see the highlight in green, and there should two maps to help us to confirm the node authorizers, which is responsible for the authentication of the tunnel. So there should be two maps. One is the tunnel port UID and cluster ID, and the other is the map for the cluster ID with the node authorizers. And then we can, I think John has some comments for this. That means that the corresponding node authorizers should respond for the right corrector the tunnels. Yeah. So this is the flow diagram for this thing. And I think after all of this, and I think this should be we think this should be okay for us to in this multi clusters. Yeah. So
Hey, we're not seeing a flow diagram or anything.
okay.
Wait a minute.
Here?
Your screen sharing stopped too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell us which figure 1 or figure 2 in your doc.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
Wait.
Okay. In fact, for the figure 1, there should be this should be the the normal multi-clusters, the deployment of the issue in multi-clusters, and the control plane in the cluster and data plane in another clusters. And the figure 2 is the current situations for the ambient mesh. You know, the tunnel in the data cluster cannot get the correct feedback from the CSR responsible from the H2D. So we gave some implementations for this. The figure 3 in the left parts is the previous original solutions for this, the CS server and the CS node authorizers. And we need to do some, we need to do some changes for that, for make sure that the server can support the multi-clusters. So we add the multi-clusters node and authorizer, and then the corresponding node authorizers will give their confirmations for the CSR from the tunnel. So that's the basic ideas for this part. And there has in there we also have some descriptions about the details to how to make this happens in there. And this is the flow chart for the process. There's authentications, impersonations from the servers, and then the multi-class will do the match for the right node as writers, and then give the confirmations, and then completed all the process. And here are some more details about this in the Fig 5, and then it should be okay. And I'm not sure if that clear for us. I think this should be it's a sample. It's a sample, yeah.
Yeah, so can I ask a basic question? So what's the urgency to support this model when we don't have ambient for single cluster recommended for production yet?
Yeah, in fact, you can give some. Yeah.
In fact, this is a real problem which we encountered in our production environment. As you can see, some of the cloud product providers will serve EC2 in what you can call an external EC2 mode, which the control plane is outside the user's data plane cluster, and we are trying to enable ambient mesh in this kind of production environment when we encounter into this problem. And we found that with this little improvement, we can simply make it possible to enable ambient mesh mode in our production environment. So we think we also think it's a good chance to make it as a feedback to the community.
Okay, so you're looking at just single cluster ambient around Istio control plane external to the cluster. Is that the main scenario you are going after?
Yeah, that's the main deployment mode of our production environment. So currently, you can see more and more cloud providers will serve Istio in this kind of deployment mode. So we think it will be a wide use case.
Yeah, so I guess there's a basic architectural question I look at. Obviously, I don't have an objection to having different deployment modes for the control plane. Whether specifically the certificate authority in remote control plane mode, whether we would recommend a single kind of deployment model for that, or whether we would recommend a replicated deployment model for that, right? Whether it was effectively an authorizer in each cluster. Separating recommendation from implementation, though, I don't have a problem with an implementation offering a single point of failure authorizer based on a single control plane deployment. So that seems okay. Does anybody have strong opinions about recommendations, however? I'll take that as a no.
Well, I think
clearly,
just fundamentally, if this is happening today, then I don't think there's really that much difference, right? Like if the use case exists today, and right, then I think it makes sense, right? Like if the use case exists for sidecars, I think we should probably make it work for ambient, even if there are potentially better ways to do it. I don't think, I think it makes sense to have it.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say, make sure, it doesn't impact people who don't leverage this mode, right? Because you choose to opt in for this mode, and it shouldn't impact people who run Istio locally on the same cluster as zTunnel, and shouldn't elevate their required permission in anyhow.
I don't think this is a mode, Lynn. Right, this is just an improvement to the bundles authorization flow. If you use a different CA as the issuer, right, that's already by definition a different architecture. So I don't think the user should be choosing between multi-cluster node authorizer and single cluster node authorizer. Like, why would we ever make the user choose? It just either it works or it doesn't, and it's secure or it's not. If it implied some elevated security privileges beyond the scope of what we already offered for multi-cluster, then we could have a debate about that, but I don't think it would.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, right? Because the user would need to let us know they're operating Istio outside of their cluster, right?
No,
somehow
the user
they would
need
let
to.
us know.
The provider would have to do that.
Right, the operator, whoever set up the mesh.
I'm not sure they would need to tell us anything beyond what they already tell us for multi-cluster. We already, when zTunnel comes in, it tells us what cluster it is in, and when we authenticate it, we make a request to that cluster API server to verify that it is who it says there. We do an additional check, and we check the wrong cluster. It's almost actually not really, but it's kind of a security-ish hole that we're checking the wrong cluster to see if the pod's running there. So zTunnel on cluster A can get a certificate for something that's actually not running on its node. It's running on the same named node on another cluster. Now, is that a big deal? Probably not. But it is wrong, I think, and also happens to break the multi-cluster case. So I think this is a good proposal.
So this is more somewhere between a bug fix and an enhancement.
Yeah, it's a bug fix, and it also happens to enable multi-cluster and external. Well, this part of multi-cluster, I'm sure there's probably other stuff that needs to be fixed with multi-cluster.
Okay, thanks.
Austin?
Yeah, if I can one more comment here. One thing that we are doing with Ambient is on demand. So it would be very nice if such a model would, especially for multi-cluster, you have 100 clusters, maybe large, maybe even more. If the check would use a cache instead of just keeping in memory the list of all the endpoints in all the clusters in the entire universe. There may be a use case for having, a database, with watching all the IPs for other purposes, but for the purpose of generating certificates on demand would probably work much better, where basically the JOT token that is sent by the pod usually include information about the cluster that issued, because it has an issuer, and then based on issuer you can find the API server, and the API server you can check if the pod is there with an on-demand request. That's because multi-cluster is very different from single cluster in terms of size and expectations about this, and it's not latency sensitive.
Yeah, I think I'm going to disagree with you there, because I think, projects like Spire already do that. I'm not really sure it should be the responsibility of Istio to manage that level of complexity. I'm not saying it's not, but I think it's worth investigating, like external integrations for such a scaled CA use case.
Nothing about a node authenticating CA is unique to Istio. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. My point
that's what I mean.
Yes, the entire thing is not specific to Istio. That was really my point, and an implementation of such a thing, again, should be able to scale and not use the current model of watching all endpoints and nodes. That's really my. I'm not saying that Istio should do it. I'm saying that there should be probably a service that is using Istio method with an on-demand and a scalable method, and probably we should not necessarily work on it.
Well, are we specifically saying Istio can have a mechanism that works because the Istio CA works for multi-cluster today for sidecar? It's okay for it to have a reasonable scalability limit beyond which we would make a recommendation that you should go to a more sophisticated CA deployment model.
Yeah, I agree. And to answer John's comment, I mean, yes, there is a fundamental problem with our approach is that indeed you cannot do a O1. I mean, you cannot find out the IP and node very easily. There are some ways around it, but also there is a use case to have a service, a separate service that is tracking IP to metadata, which is what is proposing for telemetry, which would be the ones that is watching all the nodes in API. We don't want to have everyone, both the CA and telemetry to do that. The pod ID, whatever. I mean, the
Okay, yeah, just make sure there wasn't confusion there. Wasn't an important difference?
both of them can work. I mean, there is a model in a, you know, if it's CA is running on the same VPC, you can use a, anyway.
Okay, so it sounds like there's consensus that this is a good proposal. We should explore it and make enhancements to Istio. Details to be reviewed in the doc, but everyone is generally supportive. Doesn't seem to require any new enrollment steps or configuration steps, which is nice. But we also recognize the limits of Istio CA, and people should consider using other CAs for complex deployments.
And they should make sure their CA is actually doing the security checks they think they do. So there are
Yes.
other projects that have similar security requirements in the CNCF that are graduated that do not.
Yes. Cough.
So, do you guys all think about that? This should be take over by the other certificates management, such as cert management or something else? Shall we? Shall we really do fix this enhancement or do this to improve the Istio in multi-clusters, or yeah?
So I think you should do this enhancement,
Mhm.
right? Because Istio does
Yeah.
ship the CA out of the box, and it's good for that CA to work.
Okay.
But we also make a recommendation that depending on other constraints, right, you may want to use a different CA, right? That's really a vendor or product choice for people to make in context of a given customer's needs. So I'd like you to make this change, but you know, Ali Cloud, if you want more CA and want other CA capabilities, you might want to look at not using Istio CA for your use case.
Okay.
If you're happy with the Istio CA, it does what you want, and your customers are happy with it, and you're not restricted by any of its limitations, then by all means continue to use it in production.
Yeah, I guess I put this in the chat, but I think under a certain scale, I think it's totally fine. In fact, we've seen it. I've personally seen like issues where like other CAs fall apart sooner, and so having an intermediate in Istio is nice. So as long as the number of clusters that it's managing is low, this sounds like a good solution.
Yeah, this would be a terrible solution if you had 10,000 clusters. But it's totally fine solution if you've got 10, 20 clusters. As long as those clusters don't have 10,000 nodes each with 100 pods.
Well, maybe let's, just out of curiosity, how many clusters are you managing with each Istio at Ali Cloud?
Yeah, could you provide these details or for all of us?
Actually, at about 80% of our customers only use one clusters. So about 50% maybe, 15% maybe they use two clusters. and the others use 3 or above clusters. Maybe our biggest customer will use 4 clusters.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
this is obviously fine for that.
yeah. Yeah.
And-
So
and-
for the
Oh, sorry.
yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna ask. So each customer gets their own IstioD instance. That's the tech like that's the contract that you've created.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I was just curious. Okay.
Yeah, one more
Yeah,
one more
this-
question. One more question about this. Should I implementation this proposal to and you know there's some multi-cluster solutions for Istio itself. Shall we implementation or enhancement this to this multi-clusters in Istio for Istio?
Are you asking if you want to?
Yeah,
Should you start working on multi-cluster ambient?
Yeah, as you know, the Istio has the multi-cluster feature itself. It has these features. So could we or shall we implemented implemented these features in such multi-clusters features for Istio in the community? You know, we want to do the contributions to the Istio community, not just for the OniCloud per case. Yeah.
Yeah, so from a priority, from a community perspective, before you present, right, we kind of go through, you know, what is urgent for Istio Ambient needs to be done for declaring some production ready, right? I think the context of external Istio-D, given most of your user is on 80% of your user is on single cluster, stabilize that single cluster does make sense if you guys have bandwidth to help us achieve, you know, I think we need a lot of help, particularly in testing for single cluster hardening and edge scenarios. We would much appreciate that too. That's just my thoughts. And also external Istio-D, I understand it's a high priority for you to be able to provide some cloud offering for ambient, right? Even for single cluster. But to your point, the design should definitely accommodate this multi-cluster model of primary remote, which is what I think what you are going after. But I don't think the community would have much bandwidth multi-cluster right now, just to, you know, as we are stabilize the single cluster.
Thanks, Lynn, for this clarification.
Yeah. Long term, we definitely want this to be contributed. Like, let's be clear about that part. And if you have PRs that implement this and implement it well, and it has no negative impact on single cluster testing or coverage, it's probably fine.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to enable you for its external Istio-D for single cluster too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But perhaps ecosystem is a good place for this kind of stuff. I mean, that's another discussion we should have about, you know, kind of keeping things separate and modular.
I don't know, because this is Istio-D CA really custom, right? And it's like enhancing an existing feature in it. There's a separate, I think, thread about whether we should take Istio CA out of Istio. That's a whole other topic, much too big for the remainder of this meeting.
Yeah, okay. I think we can. Thanks for all your suggestions and idea or opinions. I think we can try to submit some PRs for this implementation, and so let's see the feedback from you. Is that okay?
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Really
Yep.
good.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
so much.
Mike?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that, like, the use case of having a external managed control plane is important for like the vendor offerings. That's definitely something that we would have an interest in enabling, and this seems like a reasonable fix to help get along to make that work with Ambient. So just +1.
Yep. Lynn, perhaps we should capture that in the beta doc. It's not a strict requirement, but on blocking vendors, get more.
Yeah.
On blocking vendors, so we can get more user feedback is probably a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I will capture that. And who should I assign as the owner? Should I assign the document author as the owner for this multi-cluster node authorizer doc? Yeah, do let me know offline.
Yeah, I think for these multi-clusters, node analyzer can give us. Yeah, we can take this over.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, next up we have John and Ben.
Yeah, I think this is just a quick check, John, to make sure I understand for the in-pod CNI stuff, the current PR basically does something similar to what we do now, right? We have to basically let host node originating traffic through so that kubelet health checks come through, right? We don't proxy those through ztunnel in the current Ambient implementation, and we don't want to do it for the upcoming one. What the one in the PR does is it only does this exclusion if that traffic is bound for health check ports as defined in the pod manifest. So if something came from the node that went to a different port that was not the health check port, it would proxy it through ztunnel by default today in that proposal. I think what John wanted to do was just say, no, it doesn't matter if it's coming from the node locally, doesn't matter what port, just let it through no matter what, because that's a more consistent expectation than what we're doing. I wanted to make sure, John, that's what you were saying, and also to kind of point out that even for that approach, we still need to do the source NAT bit to do that. We can't rely on deriving host IP really, because that's not easy to do in a consistent way across CNIs. So that's kind of why we're doing it the way we're doing it, because we don't actually go and try to find the host IP to exclude it. We just use node local traffic based on that socket flag. So I wanted to make sure that was what you were saying, is that we can, the SNAT would stay, but we will just not care about the destination port when excluding host originating traffic. Is that correct?
Yep, definitely.
Okay. That's fine. Yeah, I just want to make sure I was understanding.
So
there may be better ways.
Here,
real quick. There may be better ways than the SNAT that we can explore in the future, but I don't actually have.
Yeah, I also, if there are better ways, please, anyone. We struggled over this for a long time. And there,
I might do with eBPF, but I don't know if it.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with that approach for now.
Okay,
We should just consider it.
Thank you.
Maybe
That's all I needed to know.
we come up with something clever.
Yes, please, if someone has something. Okay, cool. Next thing.
So is this
Ben,
a
can you just
block?
summarize?
Yeah, I'll summarize in the doc. Yes.
So is this a blocker for John's here? Not John, but for Ben's PR to be merged, John?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but
it
it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I remember we had some challenging with including the health check ports in the past. Ben, do you remember? I think it's like the pods and it's still CNI and ztunnel maybe in some type of race condition where the pods couldn't reach out running, and because of the health check was intercepted by the request of a health check was intercepted by the
Right.
CNI and ztunnel.
But that's not a consideration here, really. This is just a question of how much host originating traffic do we want to ignore, all of it, or just the parts that are in the health, that are just the host, just the health check ports, which, for consistency, I don't mind doing it. The difficulty is if any solution that relies on actually figuring out what the host IP is from the pod's perspective, that gets real tricky real quick with different CNIs. So that's kind of why we're not doing that in this implementation. Which is a much more portable approach. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's it. I'll update the doc.
Okay, thanks.
Sanjay?
One quick question. What is the downside of even letting the host local traffic go through the ztunnel for auth purposes? Like, is there a downside to also letting the host local traffic go through?
Well, the difficulty is when you put a health check port in your pod manifest, you're saying, I want the host node to hit this unauthenticated, right? That's what it is. It's an unauthenticated thing, right? The host node has no identity to ztunnel. So if the kubelet on the host node is going to ztunnel, it has no source identity, right? And that's where it gets a little bit tricky of like, what do you mean authorization? Like, you know, until without that, it's kind of pointless. And so the idea is that we just bypass, like all the sidecar does this right today with the whole health check rewrite by updating the pod manifest to something different. Ambient, the current ambient implementation just ignores all stuff on the host node. Like we could send that stuff through ztunnel, but that you have to solve the problem of, so what identity does the source node have and how do we test that and send that to ztunnel? And then you've also got the question of you're just running a lot of health checks through ztunnel for no particular benefit. And it's messy for logs and messy just in general. But it's not that we can't do it. It's just that there's no real need to do it from what we can tell.
Sure, but
I think it's also not easy to do because you are in the hostnet namespace.
That too, yes.
But setting aside health check traffic, what I think I heard was all traffic from a host should to an ambient pod should bypass ztunnel, right? Not just health check traffic.
That's what we want to do because current ambient does that. And John made the argument. I'll link the PR in here too, that it's more consistent for Istio to just not special case this stuff and to say, look, if it's traffic originating on the host node, we're not going to do anything with it, and there's no conditional around that. Which, you know, I think either way, I don't really care much about that one way or the other. So like, that's fine with me. But if anybody has other opinions, I guess go ahead and shoot it out.
Yeah, sounds good. I think that will take care of the health check ports problem too.
Well, I was just wondering that don't you want to go through auth
not for health check, right? I don't want
not for non-health check traffic, for non-health check traffic.
Well, I think the point is,
yeah.
Sanjeev, most traffic from like host node to pod is infrastructural in nature. If it's not health check, it's telemetry. If it's not telemetry, it's log scraping. It's very rare for any of that stuff to be to an application API that you would apply authorization policy to. If we find a use case where that is the case, then we could take a feature request to add it, but we haven't seen one.
Okay, I was just thinking out loud that, you know, the auth is there for security purposes, and even the host shouldn't be able to sneak traffic into the pod.
Well, but if you run things at host level, right, you already might have maybe picked up elevated privileges.
Okay.
Yep,
right.
You already do. All right, move on to the next topic.
One quick one on this one to just to throw an idea. Do we want to do the same thing for host ports? I mean, if an application is using node port, I'm not sure what we are doing today and how well we are doing it, but should we also have a special mode for those? Because they can be, can use policies to not allow this if you don't want to, but it would be a way to, John or others.
Host ports.
Where the application is using either the host network or it's opening node ports.
Host network
or node ports. Both of them are basically you are already creating ports on the node that are.
I think host network is outside of the mesh, right?
Well,
for sidecar, we don't support.
Okay, so we should document that if you use host network, you are not intercepted. That's what I was asking for. I mean, do we want to support it? Do we want to do something to support it or not? And second, for the node port is a third case that is special.
I think for the host network, you'll break a lot of things if you add them to the mesh. So we definitely don't want to support that. Yeah, I'm not sure about the host word because I'm less familiar with use cases.
Do you mean host port or node port?
Node port. Node port is basically what you say is that
Yeah.
you communicate with the node IP address, not with the pod IP address.
Wait, there's node port, which is for service, as a host port, which is you communicate to the port on the node, but it goes to the pod.
So you open a port on the node, and all clients talk with that particular port, including service. So they resolve.
And traffic goes to a specific pod, not the
It
service,
goes to a
right?
specific port. Yes.
Yeah, that's a host port.
Yeah. Well,
I don't believe we capture that today, Costin, for sidecar. So
I also don't believe it, but for sidecar, I think we capture it. But I want to just have explicit statement what is supported, what is not supported. I mean, I'm very happy to not intercept it, but all cases should be documented and clear.
yeah, I'm capturing the node.
So for sidecar, I know we don't do host network. Are you saying we don't do host port or node port also?
I believe
At the
for node
moment?
port we support it because Envoy is intercepting in the pod container, but I'm not sure. I haven't used it in a while.
Node port is just going to work. That's transparent. Host port is different. It's implemented with some sort of NAT on the node itself directly to the pod. And I'm not sure what's the status there.
We should check
Okay.
that. I was not arguing for one or another. I just want to make sure we have a list of things that are excluded, and that list is, it's a local node to communication and node network and whatever it is. But we should be very clear what is in scope.
Yuval, could you capture this in your document, because obviously the capture mechanism has an effect on this. So I think you need to include it in your design proposal. Can I give you this?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'll have to look how it works today. I'm not even sure.
But we can start with saying that we just capture regular pods with no special situation, and then we can extend it later if we choose to. We can start with less, and then because every case adds complexity and risks and.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with just documenting the status quo and saying that's a limitation, and then we can decide if we take feature requests or improvements later. Unless there's an obvious security problem.
I'll just add one sort of point of comparison. So with the Kubernetes network policy, if it's an ingress policy, it also applies to traffic source by the node. So we would be different than the philosophy of Kubernetes network policy, because that does block traffic sourced by the node. And we are saying philosophically we are doing something different.
Are you sure about that? I think that
Yeah,
I think
there's extensions.
it
that
depends
can
on
do it.
CNI. I think this might be a gray area for the CNI implementations, but I think like most CNI traffic going into the pod is going through the CNI network, and the policy is getting applied right at the point where traffic is re-entering the pod. So even if it was a host source traffic, it would be subject to the network policy.
But that's wonderful, because we don't need to replace or to do exactly the same thing as network policy. I mean, we can start it on top of network policy, and network policy can take care of those cases. So it's perfect that we don't handle them. It's great.
Yeah, we don't have to mirror network policy. I'm just saying that there is a philosophy there that when you're blocking traffic coming into a pod, that you don't have to give a backdoor path to all traffic sourced by the node. As a reference example, in terms of what they felt was appropriate security.
Sanjeev, I think the big thing is not like
just a point of order. I think this is good discussion, but I think we should follow up offline on this topic. There is one more topic that it would be nice to get at least some preemptive consensus on in the no remaining minutes.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Ben?
Yeah, so this is basically, try to quickly go through this. So the PR again for the NPod CNI, when we implemented this internally, we kept it completely separate from the current Ambient and Sidecar CNI implementation, right? Separate plugins, separate container, and we just deployed two different containers in the CNI daemon set, right? One that handled just Sidecar pods and one that handled just Ambient pods. When we opened the PR. We merged that back into one agent, one plugin, whatever, with conditionals that say if ambient enabled, do this. If not, do sidecar stuff. This is basically a discussion about, do we actually want to retain that split or go with the old style of one agent that does ambient, sidecar, install, blah, blah, blah. The downsides to keeping them split, it was nice for us internally because we were duplicating code and stuff, but we were able to insulate ourselves somewhat. And it was easy to manage, right? Because you can just turn off ambient handling in the old node agent and then deploy a new side-by-side container that just did the ambient pods in the same daemon set. Do that with Helm flags, and you can, if you only do sidecars and you don't need to have the ambient stuff. If you do both, you have both. If you only do ambient, you only have the ambient one, whatever. But it does involve code duplication because both of these things are installing CNI plugins in the node. Both of them are running servers. Both of them are, so it's a question of like how we want to actually do this.
Yeah, and one comment I want to add, it's not completely black and white situation. I mean, we could have some code that is installing the CNI, kind of shared, but at least the logic that is tricky should be separated because I have headaches trying to review the PR and trying to understand almost everything in the CNI. So
right,
there's a mix up of cases.
I guess most obviously, are we against having a node, a Istio CNI daemon set with multiple containers in it? Maybe where one handles sidecar and one handles ambient or whatever. Like that's the most basic split, I guess, or the most obvious split. If we're not against that, then we can do that and then sort of negotiate how that falls out in the code base. I will say that the existing CNI agent that is special cased for ambient sidecars, whatever, and also UPF and a bunch of other things, it is impossible to reason about in a lot of ways because it's got a lot of stuff in it that's all conditionalized. Monoliths are cool, but if it's a completely different, non-compatible implementation and you shove it in the same thing, it's not a monolith. So,
yeah. And the user benefit is that the code is cleaner, so less bugs. I mean, it's less risk.
Yeah, I mean, you can make code that doesn't suck without deploying it into containers, right? Like we can have almost identical code and just deploy it in one container.
Yeah, well, containers just make it harder for you to make it suck, I guess.
Yeah.
But I did it. I merged it back because I figured that people would not be okay with multiples. I kind of prefer multiples personally because it's really clean, but I don't have a huge. It's up to the community, I guess.
And by the way, there is also a mechanism to upgrade to patch the just a container image. So it is possible to, for example, iterate faster on upgrading the ambient, for example, container without touching the. I mean, it opens a lot of options and especially for simplification and not reusing all the code at the same time because the code is far more complicated than it needs to be.
I think eventually this does deprecate the current redirection, but maybe until we are super confident about the current redirection, keep both options for a month or two.
No, we keep it as it is, as stable as it is until it's no longer needed, and then we just remove the container. It's easy, but at least the new code will be clean and not have to pay the. I don't know. You can implement it in Rust if you want, so it's clear that we don't use the crap.
With the dual container approach, so to be clear, the PR that's out there replaces the current ambient implementation with the new ambient implementation. Because I don't really want to end up in a situation where you have sidecar implementation, old ambient implementation, new ambient implementation, all in the same tree. That seems desirable to avoid. But yeah, that if we do two containers, then we would have one for sidecars, one for ambient, and we would probably always have those two because we're probably always going to have potentially sidecars and ambient. I don't think we would ever get rid of the sidecar CNI, or at least we almost never will.
John had a very good point. Sorry, Louis, that you could put the container next to the tunnel. The main issue is that it runs with host network or something, but different I don't know. That's model. Not a bad option.
Yes.
Different upgrade window too. You might have
currently different upgraded, yeah. But the security model is different, and I think for those reasons, it makes sense to keep them at least currently separate. But either way, it's a question of like how many implementations do we want in the tree? We have to have one for sidecar. We have to have one for ambient. They are not the same. Do we want any more than that? And if we want both of those, should they be in one container or two?
My inclination, just as peanut gallery if you're having to explain to the users why you have two containers that do as an artifact of your inability to factor your code, you've probably done something wrong. We clearly want to have just two and not three. Two is definitely better than three. So how do we get to make the decision about getting rid of the third one? What needs to happen?
No, but Louis, it's not about 2 or 3. It's about 10. I mean, we may have
No.
one container
The CNI only has to handle Kubernetes. zTunnel can have as many different transport handlers as it wants, because we don't have, like, nobody's complained about supporting SOCKS and tproxy and ton and whatever else in zTunnel.
No, but even in Kubernetes, it's supporting Kubernetes with namespace isolation. In Kubernetes, it's particularly easy to use VMs for isolation instead of containers. You can use gvisor for isolation.
Okay.
Each of them is,
yeah. We may accumulate more. I gracefully concede that we may end up with more than two. Right now, we have two that are in conflict with each other, right? That they're competing for the same use case. eBPF one and the new one.
How many reference
Right,
implementations do we want? Yes.
Yeah. If there's a really good functional reason to have three, fine, let's have three. But right now we have two that basically are replacements for each other. Shouldn't have that. So what do we need to make that decision? And if the answer is time, because people want to test, okay, then we have to eat the complexity of having 3 and 3. Sorry, then. With the understanding
by the
and
way,
the agreement that we will try to get to 2.
Yeah, by the way, Sanjeev, you already did some testing, right? The old redirection, I mean, only works in kind, right? So the fact you were able to do some testing on OpenShift, that's a big plus one.
Oh,
Yeah.
actually, yes. Could you report the results of your testing, Sanjeev?
We will in the coming days, maybe next week. Yeah, I mean, obviously this eventually will replace. I think the question is only, do you want to merge the PRN like right away and then have 2 redirection options for the next couple of months until February? Maybe just adequate testing of this PR would give us confidence, and we could just replace the current redirection entirely when the PR is merged.
So yeah, to be clear, the current PR does replace the current ambient implementation, so that there's only one implementation. The idea is that it should pass the same tests. Yes.
And it only replaces the IP tables flavor of the current redirection, right?
That's correct, but it also, because the old eBPF implementation is both assuming host network manipulation and tightly coupled with the old ambient controller, it also goes to, because it would have to be completely reworked to pull that in here too. So that's kind of the sticking point of, yes, if we just replace today, we lose that eBPF implementation, which I think was experimental, but is still there.
Yeah, but that eBPF implementation doesn't work though, because it doesn't enforce any network policy. So we should at least open an issue, make sure that code, if somebody willing to maintain it, maybe we can follow up with the Intel team to see if they have any bandwidth to add that eBPF improvement on the new code base.
And I think before we ask people to maintain something that we're going to get rid of, right, we should evaluate if we're going to get rid of it. That's the point of Sanjeev's testing. So I guess, John, like for folks who need to test this in various environments, where are we at? Because I don't want to ask the Intel folks to do work that then's just chucked, right? Like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you're talking about the new ones, right?
Yeah.
I have not ran it yet, but I have looked at each line of the code, at least at a surface level. So
I think we can expect to test it for a couple more weeks and then also review the code and so on. So we should have a good feel for it by mid-Jan, I think.
Did you say mid of January or
mid-Jan? Yeah. At which point you could just merge it and just.
I'm happy to keep the PR and the branches open for a while so people can try stuff. If we want to do it a different way, we can. But I'm inclined to just do that.
But I guess, like, Ben, would it be easier to just have the 3 and get it checked in and then allow people to iterate on it rather than keeping the PR open? I know.
I guess I'm not comfortable with that unless we have a concrete sorry, you're breaking.
Represent forms of pain. Sorry.
I think you're breaking up. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk about you. Go ahead. I was just going to say, I don't want to do that unless we have a clear avenue for getting down to 1 and not to ambient redirection implementations. I don't just want to like add a 3rd without a clear plan for getting rid of 1, you know, for when and how and what. Like if it's just we're keeping the old one around because it has the eBPF implementation in it, which is sort of working, then you know, that's the bit I don't quite understand. But I mean, we could. And how many do we have at that point? I don't want to add more duplication without a concrete plan for getting rid of the duplication.
Yeah,
I mean,
my
this
preference
kind
is
of
to.
oh, go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
No. I guess my preference is, I mean, the current CNI is broken. So my preference is after you guys have review and preliminary testing, I would like to land so that we can have more people testing, right? Because right now testing is really hard, right? You have to build on top of Ben's PR or pull UVA's private images, and you know, it's a lot of effort.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think maybe
even having
like,
temporary. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I think even having temporary 3 containers for now is better than, you know, not merging it for a while.
And I want to just add that maybe mid-Jan was conservative. I think within a week or so we should feel pretty good about whether this is it. So maybe mid-Jan was excessive.
Yeah, I mean, you already tested. At least it's better than what's out there, right? Because what's out there doesn't work with OpenShift at all. So,
yeah.
I'm also probably going to be out for a couple of weeks shortishly, so like nothing's going to get merged in the next probably anytime soon. So it's probably going to be January regardless. So yeah, like that's probably worth considering.
Okay.
Well, so I guess this is a kind of a probabilistic thing. Like we have a solution checked in that doesn't work. We have a solution not checked in that mostly does work, and a kind of probabilistic argument about which one is most likely to work by the time we ship.
And no test coverage for the scenarios that we're worried about. Yes.
Right. In that world where it seems like the probability of the new thing working is higher than the probability of the current thing, I would favor bringing the new thing in and removing the old thing in the knowledge that we can bring the old thing back.
It's in the tree, right? It's going to be in the tree. And like my metric is if our current acceptance and integration tests pass, it should be good. If those tests are not sufficient, then that's kind of a different problem. But like I want all our current stuff to pass. If all our current stuff passes, from my perspective, it's a good enough replacement versus what we've already got.
Yeah, how much? But you said, Ben, that you are probably not going to be able to merge in the next few days.
I mean,
so
yeah, nobody's merging anything this week, so I'm guessing. So like, and you know, Christmas is coming up. I'm out, so it's probably going to be January before we get to this, which should give people time to test where it is. If people would like me to, or like us to merge all this stuff to like a branch off of Ambient or something, we could do that, but I don't think that's really saves any effort. So like probably the status quo for a while, unless someone has a different opinion.
Well, if we get to the point where you are passing and able to merge next week, then it really is just kind of this probabilistic vote, right? Like we can always roll it back and roll the other thing back in if we have to.
If it passes our current test, it's at least as good as the old implementation, right?
All right, so let's just have that conversation with the PRs, right?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, thanks for going over on that one, folks, but it's useful. I think you have your answer, Ben, which is one container, 2 implementations is the desired end date.
Awesome. That's all I needed. Thank you. Yeah, and we can iterate that in the future. But no.
Catch it. Let's. Oh, you can catch it. Okay, thanks all. Yeah, we're obviously not getting to the next thing on the agenda.
All right, thanks. Bye.